no one would help me. Even though there was a prosecution going on, they said if you ever bring up satanic ritual abuse, your credibility is lost and you'll just be a kook and it doesn't exist and it's not organized in America. Just focus on child sexual abuse. So I took my children to a child sexual abuse hospital. And while they were being treated, and I had legal custody of my children, and my husband and his lawyers and the judge found out my children were in an expert hospital, they confiscated my house, everything I've ever owned, from my baby pictures to my clothes. I walked away with literally the clothes we had on our backs. Took my cars, my federal post office box mail, my income, my assets. I lost everything by taking my children to an expert on child abuse. It was trying to stop me from what my children could disclose from being uncovered. And she showed me the drawings that the children were doing in her office, and they were of blood sacrifice, of people cutting their arms and dripping blood in chalices, of chalices with devil heads, and on and on and on. It includes group sex. It includes children being killed. And I remember I just felt like my guts were just punched out of my body. I did not know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I called every organization in the country asking for help, children's organizations, and no one wants to acknowledge satanic ritual abuse. His mom had taken him to protect him, and they were found, and I had been underground for 3 years, by the way. The mother and this little boy were found. The little boy was taken to a basement. He was crucified alive. First he was skinned.
Belial, a mighty king created next after Lucifer, appears in the form of a beautiful angel seated in a chariot of fire and speaking with a pleasant voice. He fell first amongst the superior angels who went before Michael and other heavenly angels. He distributes preferences of senatorships, causes favors of friends and foes, and gives excellent families familiar. He must have offering and sacrifices made to him. Excellent. Number 15, create industrial depression and financial panic, unemployment, hunger, shortage of food. Use this to control the masses or the mobs, and use the mob to wipe out all those who dare to stand in the way. Well, I'll tell you right now, every expert I've talked to is talking about food shortage. And it's coming, I'm convinced. Number 17, expound the value of systematic deception. Use high-sounding slogans and phrases and advocate lavish promises to the masses, even though they cannot be kept.
Lampe, Missouri was a place where I heard George Bush and Bill Clinton talking. Where, from the point of view I had, they certainly were friends, and they didn't recognize any party lines between them. That's something for the, a smoke and mirrors illusion for the public. It's not something they adhere to, because they had exactly the same agenda, and that was for bringing in this New World Order. I heard George Bush talking at that time. He was talking to Bill Clinton, and I've since photographically recorded it and wrote it verbatim in our book, that when the American people became disillusioned with Republicans leading them into the New World Order, that Bill Clinton, as a Democrat, was going to be put into the office of president. This was decided in 1984. Actually, I'd heard about it even prior to that. But that, as of 1984, they were already discussing it as an absolute fact.
Number 20, establish huge monopolies toward world government control. We're seeing that today, the huge monopolies. Number 21, use high taxes and unfair competition to bring about economic ruin by controlling raw materials, organize agitation among the workers, and subsidizing competitors. GATT, NAFTA. Number 22, build up armaments with police and soldiers sufficient to protect our interests. Number 24, infiltrate into all classes and levels of society, of government, for the purpose of fooling, bemusing, and corrupting the youth members of society by teaching them theories and principles that we know to be false.
If you're talking about how we're controlled, how the few control the many, if you can suppress the information that people receive in terms of what is possible, you to the same rate suppress their perception of what is possible. Okay, now once you have accepted that what we're told is possible is how it is, then you're living in a box that big. So anyone that starts to talk about things that are beyond that perception of possibility, you immediately dismiss them as crazy. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. A few centuries ago, when people said the Earth was a sphere, they were perceived as crazy and dangerous. One of the reasons was that if you lived on the bottom of a ball, you would fall off, right? Now, once you introduce the law of gravity, what appears at first sight to be a nonsensical idea becomes perfectly logical. However, if you suppress at that time knowledge of the law of gravity, then people are going to dismiss the truth because they can't perceive that the truth can be possible. And when you're talking about entities that shapeshift, that appear and disappear, UFOs that appear and disappear, if you program the population to believe that this world is all there is, that this is a solid world of solid individual objects, then the idea of things appearing and disappearing or shape-shifting from one state to another, to that sense of perception, is totally ludicrous. But once you introduce the suppressed knowledge...
Okay, well, what we're thinking of as aliens are, they're extra-dimensional beings.
If there are that many coming from another galaxy, you'd think you'd sense the traffic. And so the conclusion that both J. Allen Hynek and Jacques Vallée and others have come to is that they're hyperdimensional, that somehow they come from another dimension periodically.
That I developed information about was an individual I learned about was Aleister Crowley. He likes to have his name pronounced Crowley to rhyme with holy. And the Satanists today, and for the number of years in the past, have basically used his philosophy and his writings as a guide. And so let's talk about some of his writings and teaching. And here on page 94 of this book, it would be unwise to condemn as irrational the practice of those savages who tear the heart and liver from an adversary and devour them while yet warm. In any case, it was the theory of the ancient magicians that any living being is a storehouse of energy varying in quantity according to the size and health of the animal, and in quality according to its mental and moral character. At the death of the animal, this energy is liberated suddenly. The animal should therefore be killed within the circle. We're talking about the satanic circle. And now listen to this sentence, folks, closely. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable system. We're talking about human sacrifices.
We have quote after quote after quote who he was serving and how he was serving his god Satan. He read the book of Revelation and he read about the coming new world order and Antichrist, and he wanted to be, he said, he wanted to get in touch with Satan personally and become his right-hand man. The movement would take off in the United States like no place else. And Aleister Crowley said what he needed to do was to get a hold of the youth.
To gain entrance to the seven gates of hell, So a concert is an act of worship for you?
Exactly. It's a focal point to express my Satanism.
Do you believe in demonic possession?
Of course.
Are you possessed?
Of course.
The band leader says, "How do you think that I became famous the way that I am?" Well, I said, "You must have had some good luck." Well, he says, "There's no such thing as good luck." He says, "There's either some power working for you somewhere, or you don't get ahead in this world." Not in my type of occupation. We worship spirits. We worship Lucifer and all his angels. They're just as beautiful as they did before they were cast out of heaven.
How can the devil save souls? What are you talking about? Man, the devil in me. I didn't hell, I did Christian. I don't care. It ain't what you believe. It's what's written in the Bible.
Well, wait a minute.
And it's blood, he's there.
And then before you know it, according to Revelation 14, everybody that takes the mark of the beast will be damned in fire and brimstone, it says, forever. And the smoke of their torment rises up forever and ever.
Like, how come that this explanation, at the very bottom line least, is as credible as the other two? How come the other two get guaranteed airtime, often no questions asked, here's your airtime, say what you like? And the alternative to both of them is ridiculed, condemned, or suppressed by reflex action. The answer that I came up with was that clearly some people don't want the public to have access to this information. But who and what and why?
Our Bohemia, we beseech thee, grant us thy counsel.
Upon further research of the ritual you just witnessed, it becomes clear it is a mixture of the Babylonian Canaanite cult of Moloch fused with ancient Druidic rites, where you have the female side of Satan, which they first call out to in the she, and then towards the horn god with the he, mixed with Masonic rites from Scotland.
It is not all the truth. We know thou waitest for us.